Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Connection Corner. I'm Barb Nangle. I am the community manager at Known Coworking, and I'm really excited today to have Dorinda Eldrgie of Spectrum Associates Market Research with us. She's going to talk about why you need market research for your business. And you may not know this about me, but I have a research background. I'm a sociologist by training. So I love all things research and I love data. I do want to take a few minutes to say some things about Known before I bring Dorinda on. It's a dynamic co-working community to make connections for entrepreneurs across their fields of expertise and endeavors and experiences. We started as a co-working space in downtown New Haven. We're still the only co-working space downtown, but we've expanded into a multifaceted entrepreneur support organization. As a reminder, Known Coworking has hourly, daily, and monthly plans for dedicated desk, office spaces, conference rooms, and Zoom rooms, all available for rent to anybody. If you'd like to know more about the space, you can send me an email. I'm at barb@knowncoworking.com. You can also check us out on the web at nhvknown.com or follow us on Instagram or Facebook at nhvknown.com. Excuse me, nhvknown, and DM us there. One of the ways that we support entrepreneurs is through our virtual program. So we have Digital Media Sync and this one, the Connection Corner. You can catch replays of all of our episodes for free on our website under Known Live and Events. Digital Media Sync is your window to the digital world. It's hosted by Julia Gambale. She's the social media maven of She's So Social. And she's also holding in-person Digital Media Sync sessions on Tuesdays at noon at Known. So this is both a networking and educational experience, and you can just show up. You don't need to RSVP. If you want to talk about anything digital media, Julia is the woman. This show, the Connection Corner, is a place for entrepreneurs, thinkers, and innovators to share either how they support the entrepreneurship ecosystem in New Haven or to profile their business. So Dorinda's kind of doing both today. She's going to talk about how she supports businesses, and then she's also going to talk a little bit about her business. If you or anyone you know would like to be featured on one of our shows, go ahead and email me. Again, it's barb@knowncoworking.com. Our purpose in both the physical and the virtual spaces is to make connections between people. We're here to help you get connected, inspired, and known. In addition, at Known, I co-host weekly with Kim Weston an in-person networking event, which is called Wine Down Wednesdays. It's 4:30 to 6:30 every Wednesday, but we're not doing it next Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. We're at 139 Orange Street, downtown New Haven, 4th floor. And each week we now profile a different entrepreneur through our fireside chats. Those usually start about 5 or 5:30. You can come anytime between 4:30 to 6:30. And now that I've gotten all that said, I want to bring on Dorinda. Hi, Dorinda.
Hi, Barb.
Welcome to the Connection Corner. So glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm jealous of your layout. I kind of wish I had a pretty couch to be sitting on.
Well, I can't sit at a desk because I have a shoulder issue. And so I sit and I actually have a laptop stand, which happens to be sitting on a table, but I'm quite comfortable. Thank you.
You look at.
Yes. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself first? And then I know you have a wonderful PowerPoint presentation with all kinds of cool information in it that you're going to launch into. But before you do that, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and how you got into the business and all that sort of thing?
Okay, great. Yeah, I have been doing market research since 1986.
Wow.
36 years. It's a little scary to think about. My company is Spectrum Associates Market Research. It was founded in 1986 by a sociologist, actually.
Oh, no kidding.
He had a PhD in sociology. So he opened the firm in July and hired me in December, and I just never left. I have just loved the world of market research. 2016, I bought the company. So we are now a certified small minority / woman-owned business. Love working in market research. I've always been a puzzle solver.
Okay.
So I really like doing research because I feel like I'm, helping businesses put together different pieces towards their success. So I've really, really enjoyed that process.
I love it. Wonderful. Well, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead. Do you want me to go ahead and put the slideshow up?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okie doke. All right. We can see it.
Okay, great. Yeah, my goal here today is to share what market research can do for businesses. And my expectation is through the Connection Corner, there's probably a variety of different size businesses and maybe some really early startups and really small businesses. So some of it may feel as though it's kind of over their head or early for them in the process. But I think it's important to always have market research in mind because it really can do a lot of good things for your company. So today I'm going to focus on 4 different ways that market research can help a business. First is messaging. It's important that when you're out there talking about your business to your customers or your potential customers, that you get your messaging right. You want to make sure that what you're saying resonates with your target audience. Offering the right products and services. You want to make sure that as you're developing a service or a product, that it's what people are looking for, not necessarily just what you want to provide, but what people want. A third aspect we're going to look at is solving problems. Unfortunately, problems are things that arise in business, and market research can help with that as well. And then, of course, satisfying customers. I think that's the way most people think about market research is they get those customer satisfaction surveys via email a lot these days. So why market research? In business, we do hear from customers. However, it's typically a small percentage of the whole pie, a small slice, as I've got up here on the screen. And oftentimes, it's people who are unhappy. They had a product that isn't working the way they expected it to, or they had an interaction within your retail shop that maybe didn't go the way that they wanted it to. When assessing things for your business, it's important that you talk to people from the whole pie, not only those people who have called in because they're unhappy, but for the majority of customers that you haven't heard from. So you want to make sure that you're doing market research so you're getting valuable insights from the whole target market, not just the small slice. So market research, when it's done right, will provide you with representative, independent data that really will help you in your decision making. The market research that I'm talking to is called primary market research. So you're going out there and gathering information that doesn't already exist. It's not what I would call secondary research, looking online and doing searches on Google or different business websites to gather data. This is going out and getting new data that doesn't currently exist. 2 general types of primary market research, qualitative and quantitative. They can be done together. They work really well together, or maybe for your needs, you only need one or the other. Qualitative is used when you need to dig deep into an issue. Lots of open-end, probing type questions. Oftentimes that would be a focus group or an in-depth interview, in person or over the phone, or these days online via Zoom or Facebook Live, Teams meetings. Quantitative research is what you want to do when you need statistically projectable findings. So if, for example, you're trying to decide if people prefer product A or product B of the different things that you could offer, you need to do a quantitative study to be able to come up with that percentage and have some confidence in it statistically. So if you want to be able to say 70% of the customers preferred product A, you need to do quantitative research. And what that means is you're doing surveys with more people than you would do with a qualitative survey. I'm sorry, a qualitative project. Step back for just a minute and give you the bird's eye view of a market research project so you can keep this in mind as we talk about the different ways research can help a business. So one of the most important steps in market research is setting goals and objectives. This is probably true for so many different aspects of business, and it's certainly true for market research. You need to think about what is it that you need to know? What are you trying to determine and figure out? Once you have the goals and objectives set, you can think about what are the right questions? What do you need to ask? Do you need qualitative questions where they're really deep, probing type questions? Or do you need something that's more closed-ended so you can get a lot of responses to it and have some statistical reliability? So the right questions lead back to the goals and objectives, as do the right people. Who is it that you need to talk to? If you find that sales are down for a particular product that you're selling, you would want to reach out to people who in the past have bought that product and see if there's any issues with it. If you're trying to determine if you need to expand your store hours, you could reach out to people that would be able to provide input on that issue. Once you've determined your goals and objectives, ask the right questions, and talk to the right people, you'll have representative data that address the important questions that you'd like to have answered. That data can be analyzed and a report provided that provides the information that you're looking for. So the end result with market research, really the key value of market research, is to give a business the ability to make more informed decisions. Mistakes are really expensive. When you're at a fork in the road in your business, market research can help increase the odds that you pick the right path.
Well said. I like that.
Thanks. Yeah. And it's so true that market research is,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, mistakes are so very expensive, and market research really can help.
You know, as you're saying this, I'm realizing I've done some of this, but I haven't thought of it as market research. So can I share a couple of things that I've done?
Sure.
So I'm a boundaries coach, and I'm also a person in recovery. And so there's some overlap with some people that I know from recovery and from my boundaries coaching business. And one thing that I get from people is they want to have a boundaries support group. So I picked 5 people, and I picked, and I mostly deal with women, but I made sure there was at least one man in there, and a couple of lesbian women, and some unpartnered women. And I asked them, you know, if I had this, what would you participate? What would make you participate? What would you want? How would you want it to operate? Would you want their people to give you feedback on the things that you share? You know, all that stuff. And I don't think I thought of that as market research, but I knew that I want to go into this providing people what they want, not what I think they need. And then the other thing that I thought of when your first slide, when you said messaging, is somebody messaged me the other day, and he's been listening to my podcast for a long time, and he follows me on Instagram, and we message a lot. And he said, you know, I'm realizing, like, if you had come to me 3 years ago and talked about boundaries, I wouldn't have known that you were talking to me, because I didn't understand that that was my issue. And I said, you know, I absolutely understand that, because if you had said to me 10 years ago, these are boundary issues, I wouldn't have known. So I do a lot of using the language of the people that come to me to talk about their issues in my marketing, to say, you know, are you overwhelmed? You know, do you feel like you have to say yes? Do you feel guilty and shamed when you try to set limits on people? So, but it is very sometimes hard, because I want to talk about boundaries because I'm a boundaries coach, and you know, people might not be hearing me. So these are examples of the kinds of things that Dorinda's talking about here.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And those are perfect examples of how a small business that's just starting out and really doesn't have a budget, those are the kinds of things that they can use. It's you know, qualitative versus quantitative. But I think it can be very informing. Like you said, with your messaging, talking about boundaries makes total sense for you, but your audience may not be hearing you because they don't see that as applying to themselves. So you really have to make sure the messaging is applying to the people that you're trying to reach.
Yeah. And actually, I just posted a reel on Instagram just like a half an hour ago that I said, you know, it's come to my attention that people don't always know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to give you 4 examples of these are the types of issues that women business owners might have that are indications that these are boundary issues. So I took that to heart and actually used it in my marketing.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. It's a perfect example of how market research can be helpful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I am going to talk about messaging, but it's going to be a little bit more sophisticated than what Barb is talking about. And that doesn't mean that what Barb was doing is not valuable, because absolutely it is. We did some work for a medical school, and they had decided that they wanted to attract more non-traditional students. So it would be people who didn't necessarily just graduate with a 4-year degree in biology and have decided they want to go to medical school. Non-traditional would be somebody who has a 4-year degree, Maybe they went and got an advanced degree in English and were teaching for a while, or they got their 4-year degree and went into even the healthcare field, but just not a doctor. So non-traditional students are people who decide that they want to be a doctor and need to go to med school kind of later in their process. So those are non-traditional students. So the executive team hired an ad agency to develop 3 different concepts for how to get their message across to non-traditional students. When the executive team looked at the 3 options, which I'm just going to call A, B, and C, they thought that option A was the winner, that was the one that most gave the information to the non-traditional students and would be most effective for them. So A was what the executive team picked. We did an online survey with target market non-traditional students. They were shown all 3 ads and asked a few questions about each one, which included things like which would most attract your attention and which would most likely increase the likelihood that you would reach out to the school for more information. And what we found was option B was the one that resonated with the target market. About half of the students that we talked to said option B was the one that would most attract their attention and increase the likelihood that they would reach out for more information. A and C actually had similar numbers and were quite a bit behind option B.
Nice. Good info.
So getting your messaging right. You want to make sure you're talking to the target market. The executive team, while they absolutely have a role at the school, they are not the target market that the advertising was trying to reach. So you have to reach out to the target market. We presented them with a number of different options and found that option B was the one that would best work with that target market. Second way you can try to use market research is developing a product or service. And what I'm going to talk about here is a performing arts school. The school traditionally offered dance and music classes to children, but they decided that they wanted to offer classes for adults as well. Instead of just developing a schedule of classes that they thought adult students would want, they decided that they would seek input from prospective adult students. We included questions like their overall interest in dance or music classes, the types of classes they would be interested in, and the days of the week they'd like to have the classes. So I have a couple of charts to show you just so you can get a sense for how a survey can provide numbers. As you can see on here, the private music classes was what people were most interested in. A little over half of the respondents said that they were very interested in that type of class, whereas only about a quarter of the prospective students were very interested in either the dance or wellness classes or the group music classes.
Good information. Like, who would have thunk?
Yeah, exactly. We also asked the students who were interested in those private music lessons what kind of instruments they'd want to have classes about. So piano was the winner. Just over half said that they would be interested in piano classes. And then just under a third were interested in voice or guitar classes. So now the school has an idea of the types of classes. They want private classes, and the instrument that created the most interest was piano. With regard to the time or the day, this was actually a surprise for me. I tend to schedule extracurricular activities on the weekends. I was not in the majority here. We found that half of the people preferred a weekday class rather than a weekend. So by doing the survey with prospective students, we gave them a variety of things to evaluate. And the result was the ideal class for the student was a private piano lesson held during the week. So this will help the management of the school decide what to do. They need, keeping in mind and understanding that market research is only a piece of the puzzle. If they had 50 students who wanted private piano lessons during the week, there may not be enough pianos or teachers or time to do it that way. So the school has to consider other things when making the decisions, but it's important to include the preferences of the target audience. The third thing I said that we were going to talk about is solving problems. So I've got a couple of examples that I wanted to talk to you about with regard to how market research helped companies with a problem. So you can see this picture here. For those of you who are not familiar, this is a drone. Drones are used by insurance companies now to help assess damage on buildings, especially the roof lines. So the insurance adjusters go for training on how to use the drones. At the end of the training, a survey is done and the satisfaction is looked at. The satisfaction scores were somewhat lower than the management thought that they should be. So they decided to do a follow-up survey with students to explore why they were less than very satisfied with the training. The hypothesis was that the students wanted to have more time flying the drones. And what we found out was they were right, but not entirely right. There was more to the desire of the students. So yes, they wanted to have more time flying the drones, but what they really wanted was the opportunity to fly the drones over different roof lines. So you can see here, there's 2 different sheds with different types of roof lines. So they wanted the chance to be able to fly the drones over these different types of buildings. So to solve that, the insurance company went out and bought sheds and constructed them in the parking lot of the training facility so that the students could get the training that they felt they needed.
Smart.
The second example I have for how it can help with solving a problem or an issue, a local chamber of commerce, the director and I were talking, and they were having an increase in the percentage of members who were not renewing. Now, this is pre-COVID, so it's not, I know chambers went through a whole lot of stuff when all the COVID restrictions came along. So this was pre-COVID. They were seeing a decrease in the renewal rates. So when that happens, a staff member from the chamber reaches out to the members and asks why they're not renewing. And the vast majority of the time, the staff members were told that it was a cost issue, that it just cost too much to join. So we decided to do a survey with the members just to try to tease that out a little bit and see if there was more to it. And in fact, there was. Oftentimes, there were multiple reasons for member companies not renewing. And while cost was part of it, it really was more of a value issue. It was that they didn't feel that what they were getting out of the chamber was worth the cost. Whether they weren't getting enough referrals or networking meetings or whatever. So again, the executive director wasn't wrong. Cost was an issue, but it wasn't entirely the whole issue either. And the research helped to tease that out. So overall, you got to make sure you talk to your target market, give them choices on what's going on with the problem. And while you may think that you know the answers ahead of time, you may find that there's a part of that issue that you hadn't thought of, a different wrinkle that maybe hadn't been anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
The last way that I'm going to talk about today with how market research can help your company is keeping your customers happy. Now, why is this important? Depending on the industry, it's 4 to 10 times more expensive to get a new customer as it is to keep a current customer. So from that standpoint, you want to make sure that you're keeping your customers happy because they stay and you don't have to replace them. Mm-hmm. In addition, a current customer is more likely to buy more and more likely to spread the word about you.
Yeah, for sure.
So for customer satisfaction, I always recommend doing what I call 2-dimensional testing. While it's important to know how a customer rates you on different aspects, using different kinds of scales. I've got a 5-point scale up here. Excellent, very good, good, fair, poor. I think we're all familiar with this particular scale. I think it's critical to also know how important those different aspects are to your customers when you're thinking about how to move forward. So I would use a similar size scale for importance. So I've got up on here extremely, very, moderately, not too, or not at all important. And I'm just going to give you a quick example of how that would work. Mm-hmm. So let's say we've got a restaurant and we want to do a satisfaction survey, and we're going to measure 4 different parameters of the restaurant: the quality and the taste of the food, the variety of the menu options, service, and ambiance. So I use the 5-point scale. So here we've got average scores for those 4 different attributes that I mentioned. Generally, the scores are pretty high, 4.0 to 4.7, but ambiance was quite a bit lower than the others. It was 4.0. With just looking at satisfaction, you would probably think that what you want to try to address at the restaurant to improve customer satisfaction is ambiance. But I would argue that you need to also look at the importance of those different factors. So this blue bars on the chart that's on your right shows the importance of the different attributes. So not surprisingly, for a restaurant, the two most important attributes were those around food, the taste of the food and the options available. Next was service, and then quite a bit lower was ambiance. Overlay the satisfaction ratings with the importance, you can see that ambiance is not necessarily the place where they should be focusing their attention. Things are good for the quality of the food. You can see the satisfaction score, which is the black dot on the line chart there, is just above the importance score, and same for the service. However, for the variety of menu options, satisfaction scores are lower than the importance scores. So this is the area that I would focus on if I were the owner of this restaurant.
Yeah, good point.
So satisfying customers, of course, your target market is always going to be your current customers when you're talking customer satisfaction. You have a variety of characteristics or attributes that you can ask about, and I would recommend doing both ratings and importance to really inform your decision making. So just to recap, we talked about 4 different ways that market research can help your business: getting your messaging right, developing a good product or service, solving problems or issues that arise, and keeping your customers happy. Now, in the past, to do market research, you really needed to hire somebody to help you. But with the advent of technology, like so many industries, there is some possibility to do it yourself with market research. However, I would argue that just like home repair, sometimes do it yourself makes sense and sometimes not so much. If your hallway light is out and it's just because the bulb blew, that's something you can do on your own. But if the hallway light is out because you're having a wiring issue, that's probably not something you should be doing yourself. So that's something to keep in mind when doing market research. If you do decide to go down the do-it-yourself path, I have 3 key recommendations. First, make sure you talk to the right people. You don't want to just post questions on your personal Facebook page to get reactions to messaging or for ideas on a new product or service. Your friends on your personal Facebook page may not be your target market. So you want to make sure that you're talking to the target market. Make sure that you ask the right questions in the right way. Barb's example earlier in this conversation was she did some in-depth questioning of people that could be potentially interested in the support group that she was thinking about doing. That was asking the right questions in the right way.
And the right people, because they were all people that I have had a conversation. Like, I know that they want help with their boundaries, and I know that they're people who have been to support groups of some kind before.
Right.
So I was 100% certain these are like, maybe those exact people are not going to join my group. And I said that to them, like you will be, of course, offered the opportunity, but I'm not expecting you to join the group. I just want your input.
Right. And it's really good to be able to ask people that way in an informal setting and for them to not feel pressured.
Right.
I mean, one of the advantages of having an outside entity do your research, especially with your customers, and I think we saw this with the example for the chamber, is people don't want to hurt your feelings.
Right.
So I think that the members for the chamber, when the staff person asked why you're not joining, it's easy to say it costs too much money. It's harder to say to the staff person, well, I think the events you're holding aren't very good. It's harder to say that to a staff person, where if it's a survey that's being done anonymously, I think you sometimes get more honest answers.
Right.
So so for the do-it-yourself, you need to make sure that you ask questions in the right way. There really are rules for question writing. You need to make sure that they're easy, short, and unbiased. So if this is something that you want to pursue, you should do a little researching on how to write a good question.
Mm-hmm.
The third piece that I think is often hardest for business owners is to leave your biases at the door. When you're starting a business, or even if you're years in, your business is your baby. You've invested a lot of yourself in it, and you see it from your own perspective. When you're doing research, you're seeing issues from other people's perspective, which can really help you succeed, but sometimes it's hard to hear. So you need to make sure you leave any biases that you have about your company, and any thin-skinned reactions at the door for do-it-yourself market research to be successful. So those are kind of my 3 quick tips on do-it-yourself market research. So I'm happy to offer a 30-minute consultation for anyone who is thinking about market research and if it might be helpful to them. If you've got a particular issue you're struggling with, I'm happy to help you think about resources or ways that you might be able to get the information that you need. And I did put my contact information up there.
Wonderful. And we're gonna send the replay out on our mailing list. So I'll make sure that I include your email address in that so people can just click on that.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and remove that from the stream. So question I have for you is, like, for Spectrum Associates, do you have an ideal type of client that you work with? And if so, what kind of organizations are those?
Right.
You actually gave a nice variety of the types of clients that you've worked with.
Yeah, I do. I mean, we're probably more mid-sized clients at this point. 20 years ago, we were doing a lot of work with big insurance companies and big banks. I think I've evolved over time, as we all do. So I've got a soft spot for smaller companies versus larger companies at this point. I know places like Known support a lot of solopreneurs and businesses just starting out.
Right.
I like to be able to give back and help those kind of companies. But for paying the bills kind of thing at Spectrum, we work with more mid-sized companies, professional organizations. I do a lot of work with the New York State Association of Realtors, their members, and nonprofits.
Okay, wonderful. I feel like you'd had such a comprehensive and excellent presentation that I don't have any questions left. So, and I don't see any questions in the comments. So unless there's something else that you really wanted to add that you didn't get a chance to, I think we'll wrap up.
Okay, no, this has been great. Thank you so much for letting me share kind of my expertise. I like to be able to go out and inform businesses on something that can help them.
Yeah, I love it. If you wouldn't mind sticking around for a couple minutes, though, just so I can chat with you, I'm going to take you off screen. So Thank you so much, Dorinda. And I just want to close out here.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, whether you're watching live or on the replay. And I want to again invite you to come to Known any Wednesday, except for next Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, between 4 and 6:30 for Wind Down Wednesday for open networking. And we cater specifically to entrepreneurs, but just about anybody is welcome. Thank you so much. See you next time.